You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bets, $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And I figured it was appropriate to start off like not like us if you didn't get it, because, well, we're talking about the Florida Gators opponents this year on the 2024 schedule and the 2025 schedule. On the Monday or Tuesday show, we talked about the Florida Gators. It was the Monday show, I want to say it was the Monday show. We talked about the Florida Gators building blocks, those five premium positions of quarterback, pass catcher, offensive tackle, pass rusher, and cornerback. And we talked about what they have in the present and the future. As a reminder, the present has to be a bona fide, proven good starter. So for this show, to keep it as objective and unbiased as possible, talking about opponents, because I didn't want it to be based on my opinion and let whatever school they play for cloud that opinion, I picked a starter at the Power 5 level in 2023 with a PFF grade of 75 or higher. Okay? For just to also acknowledge this, if you look at my opinion of the Florida players, they fit that as well. The 75 or higher overall grade starters at the Power 5 level in 2023. So they fit that as well for the players, where I said you have quarterback and pass catcher and nothing else. That fits as well here, okay? For the future, a consensus blue chip recruit from the 2023 or 2024 recruiting class, okay? And again, since Florida plays all of these teams again in 2025, except for Samford, who we're not talking about because they don't have any. So Florida plays all these teams again in 2025, except Samford, where they replaced that with Florida A&M. It makes sense to look at the future. And you look at the first three games here. Miami, on paper, they've got players at four of those five positions. And again, this is it was a theory that I learned from Thomas Dimitroff, who was a longtime general manager of the Atlanta Falcons. And it's that if you have players at these five premium positions, odds are you've got a good football team. Just they're the premium positions. They make the biggest impact. So having good players at those spots means that, hey, you're probably going to work out pretty well. And so for Miami, you've got quarterback Cam Ward, who is at Washington State. He had the grade. Again, I know that I'm a fan of him, and I know that I've openly said that. He had the grade regardless. Pass catcher, because they have Xavier Restrepo. Pass rusher, because they have Ruben Bain. And then outside corner is that Darryl Porter Jr. So present, they've got four of the five. The only thing they don't have is offensive tackle, which for all the Miami fans telling me how awesome Francis Mauigoa was, not awesome enough to hit that. Just want to throw that one out there. And then you look at the future, they've got pass catcher, offensive tackle, pass rusher, outside cornerback. So Francis Mauigoa counts here, offensive tackle, 2023 class, so he fits there. What they don't have is a quarterback, which is not surprising. They've added Cam Ward through the portal. They brought in Judd Anderson for 2024, but he's not a blue chip player. And so they're 4-4, not a bad spot to be in if you're talking about legitimately. Again, this is just building the roster. It doesn't take into account coaching in any way, shape, or form. It's building your roster. Okay? So building the roster, Miami's got 4 for the 2024 and 4 for 2025. Unfortunately for them, they don't have the most important one in 2025, but that's it. That is what it is. They are one of, I believe, 2 teams that we're going to talk about. Yeah, one of 2 teams today that have 4 players at the premium positions for 2024 that qualify here. And again, like I said, we're not talking about Samford, so we're skipping Samford, and we're going in order of the schedule. So then week 3, you get Texas A&M. They have quarterback and pass rusher. And if you remember correctly, the pass rusher is someone that we talked about on this show before, that a lot of Florida Gators fans wanted, went for a visit, and ultimately committed to Texas A&M, and Nick Scorton from Purdue. So we talked about him a lot. And yeah, he's with A&M, good football player. Quarterback Connor Wegman had like a 92 or something like that on PFF. It was kind of wild, even though he's dealt with injuries at times. And then the future, they've got quarterback, pass catcher, offensive tackle, pass rusher, outside cornerback that are all blue chips. And that's important and relevant because there are 6 teams on this Florida Gators schedule that have those key players at all 5 positions. Okay? Keep in mind, Florida also has that because you're looking at the 2023 and 2024 classes. So you got DJ Lagway for 2024. At pass catcher, you've got 4 guys, I think it was. I think it was Trey Wilson, Tank Hawkins, TJ Abrams, and Aiden Mizell. Offensive tackle, you've got Fletcher Westfall here, Caden Jones last class as well. Pass rusher, you've got a lot of guys, depending on how you want to qualify them or whatever that may be, but TJ Searcy, Kelby Collins, LJ McCray, of course, Cameron James, also blue chip. And then outside cornerback, you've got Jameer Grimsley and Jakeem Jackson, Deshaun Johnson, if I'm not mistaken. So you've got guys at every position. You have multiple guys at every position for Florida. For the opponents, I didn't look if they had multiple guys or not. I just went down the list and marked if they had someone at that spot. So Texas A&M, like 6 teams on this Florida Gators schedule, and like the Florida Gators, have players at all 5 premium positions for the future. Okay, so they've got their future built out. Most SEC teams, I think, that are even in the top half of the SEC are going to have players at those positions. So that's not surprising. You could even say top 3/4 of the SEC will have all 5 spots filled out. It just makes sense coming to the SEC, stacking talent at these positions. And if you're in the SEC, like for Florida, like you're always going to have, or you should always have, pass catcher, pass rusher, outside cornerback just in your state. And then quarterback is the one where you have to leave. But for a school like Texas A&M and Texas, you should always have a quarterback because you're in Texas. And for some reason, a ton of good quarterbacks come from Texas. So Texas A&M, only 2 players for 2024 at the premium positions, but 5 for the future. Then Mississippi State is the only school on this list without a single player for 2024 at these premium positions. That's not surprising when you consider the unfortunate circumstance around Mike Leach in the end of the 2022 season, and then hiring, I think it was Zach Arnett in 2023, now going Levy like having just a lot of program changes in the past couple of years. I mean, it kind of answers some of those questions. You look at the future, they have pass catcher and offensive tackle, but again, right now, none. And I think most people are kind of expecting a pretty rough year for Mississippi State, just again, with everything that's gone on. It's totally understandable. But it is what it is. But so far through the first month of the schedule, you've got a team with 4 players at the present and 4 players in the future, and then a team with 2 players at the present, all 5 in the future. And then, of course, Mississippi State with none in the present, 2 in the future. And again, not including Samford in this because they have none and will have none. Unsurprisingly, who could have anticipated that? Who could have anticipated that Samford doesn't have a ton of blue chip players going there? But overall, I will say, looking through this, there's a few teams where the present doesn't have answers, but it's also important to acknowledge that you have to be a proven starter at the Power 5 level in 2023. So, like, we're going to talk about Tennessee in the next segment. And I'm not going to pretend I know how to pronounce his last name, but Nico, superstar, 5-star recruit for 2023. He's not on there because he was not a starter last year. So you're going to see things like that. So you do have to take into account context matters for everything. Okay. And context here is there's going to be teams that have better presence than really. Like you look at Tennessee right now, Kentucky right now, you look at Georgia. Like when you have roster turnover because you lost guys to the NFL or whatever the reasoning may be, and when you have players who were studs in 2023 but didn't play and are going to start this year, and you expect them to start this year and play well, context matters. Like it's not as simple as, oh, you have these players or you don't have these players. This is just an exercise to kind of help you figure out some things as far as overall roster strength and just where you may be as a program. And we're about to talk about those teams, including Tennessee, including Georgia, UCF, and Kentucky, and the back half of the schedule. But first, we're going to get a quick word from Yahoo Finance. Let's get straight to the point. You want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising costs of inflation, to pay off your debt or your mortgage, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom, right? With Yahoo Finance, you can get access to the news, data, and tools that you need in order to help reach that financial freedom. I mean, I was in a Twitter space yesterday morning. We were talking about finances and the stock market and planning everything, and it was kind of wild. It was a Gator space. It wasn't even like a finance space, but everyone talks about it. Everyone thinks about it, right? And if you're not thinking about it, start. Okay, maybe you can use Yahoo Finance, which for more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. They are the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And so after the first month, we know what Florida's schedule looks like on paper as far as the premium positions. Then you look at those middle four. And again, because we're working things out the way that we are, we get to just look at last segment, 3 teams, because we were skipping Samford. Even if you wanted to include them, would have been very brief. And then we get to break it up into 4. So this time we're looking at Central Florida, UCF. Their present is only at quarterback. They lost John Reese Plumlee at QB, but replaced him with KJ Jefferson, and you could also mention Jakari Brown. But I'm assuming KJ Jefferson is going to be the starter this year, Jakari Brown next year. And so KJ Jefferson gives you that answer presently. And again, KJ Jefferson is someone that started for Arkansas last year. If anything, he's taking a step down to the Big 12. Especially the Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma. Stepping down to the Big 12, starting for this Gus Malzahn offense, which we know is going to be fun and effective, and had a good game against Florida last year. Really just pummeled them. No other way to put it. So they've got their one present is a damn good present, right? Future, they've got only pass catcher. That's it. I think for most people, we could say, hey, yeah, Gus Malzahn team, not really going to be loaded up at cornerback or pass rusher. He's just not that kind of coach. He's always been very offensive heavy. He's probably going to stay that way for the remainder of his career. And then for SEC play, now every team except the final one is all SEC from this point on. You have Tennessee. They have one present in pass rusher. That's it. They've got James Pierce, who's arguably the best pass rusher, best edge defender in the entire country. You look at any mock draft, he's probably going top 3 there. He's a hell of a pass rusher, incredibly productive, right? He was a very productive pass rusher last year, just a wrecker. But again, they're probably going to have more. Like you look at corner, they lost one starter to the NFL draft, so they're going to have a new starter step in to replace him. It's not like they had a bad starter there. He went to the NFL. Then you look at quarterback. They did have a bad starter there, and Joe Milton. He went to the, I think, Patriots. I think he was one of the 2 or 3 tight ends they drafted. And so Joe Milton is in the NFL. You have Nico replacing him. Nico, if he reaches the expectations they have, he'll find his way onto this list as the present at quarterback. But going into the season now, May 9th, no, he's not there. But in the future, they are another team that has all five spots filled out: quarterback, pass catcher, offensive tackle, pass rusher, outside corner. So Tennessee, another one where they've got their answers for the future. They've got a key player, a blue chip player at all five premium positions, which again, common theme in the SEC is to have those answers because this is the SEC. You can't just dilly-dally on things like that. You've got to be consistently building your roster, consistently building your program, and consistently have your team ready to go to war, right? And again, with the transfer portal, things will change. Future will change, present will change. Like Florida, because again, the key metric here is having a player at a key position, premium position, that was a starter at the Power 5 level. So guys that come over and transfer from Louisiana, like we've seen have success, be unanimous All-Americans, those guys don't count. They don't. So players stepping up don't count. And I mentioned that for Tennessee because they've had players transfer in from smaller programs that dominated at the smaller programs, but were not Power 5 level, did not qualify. Things like that, they happen, right? So the present, Tennessee only has a pass rusher. That will change by the time these two teams meet up in, I think it's week 6, but they meet up game 5, week 6, if I'm not mistaken, or game 6, week 7. Game 6, week 7 for Tennessee. So that will change. Future, they've got all 5. Kentucky, they've got one spot, and it's outside cornerback. They had a bit of roster turnover. They lost one of their starting offensive tackles to the NFL draft. And again, like a spot like offensive tackle, outside corner, you have one guy starting there. Or you have two guys starting there. Losing one hurts you a lot. Like losing Jeremy Flax, who I don't think was very good for the NFL, but he's a decent college offensive tackle. So Kentucky has outside cornerback. That is all they have. And for the future, they've got pass catcher, pass rusher, outside cornerback. So Kentucky, a team that is always going to have just gritty teams. I don't expect them to have many blue chip QBs come in, right? They've been cycling. They have Brock Vandegrift right now, which, I mean, I feel like he's always been someone where we go, oh yeah, he can pop off, and he's never gotten the opportunity to do that. So maybe that changes. Maybe he figures it out at Kentucky, but for the time being, they also brought in Wimsatt from Rutgers, who was not Gavin Wimsatt is his name, was not a qualifier for this in terms of the actual grade that he received because he's not awesome. You know how I know he's not awesome? He lost the starting quarterback battle at Rutgers and transferred out after that. So yeah, generally, those guys aren't awesome. The guys that lose the battle at Rutgers are not fantastic. He didn't have the grade to qualify for it, and I don't think he'll be the starter at Kentucky anyway. Then Georgia, QB, pass rusher, and that's it. And I have no problem saying that I would include Dominic Lovett on here if we were talking about, if it was just my opinion of players, I would include Dominic Lovett here as pass catcher. But it's not my opinion. It's strictly by the PFF grade and being a starter, and he did not have the PFF grade. So Dominic Lovett did not make it. I think his film looks really good, but doesn't make it grade-wise. They just lost Ladd McConkey, who was there. Amarius Mims was there. Kamari Lassiter was there. So they lost to 3 players at those premium positions. You look at the future, the 2023-2024 class, they've got blue chip players at QB, pass catcher, offensive tackle, pass rusher, and outside corner. So they have the answers at every spot, and Georgia does this every single year. Every year they're replacing starters at premium positions. Like we talked about this, we did this before the 2023 season, and it was a similar situation of Georgia having, I think they had pass catcher for Ladd McConkey and corner for Kamari Lassiter. And quickly they had good, because they lost their offensive tackle. So they and they lost Stetson Bennett. They lost key players to key positions, but they replace and reload. Like that's one of the reasons that you need to make sure the future you have those blue chip players. So when you have them at vacant in the present, whether it's because you have not quality players there right now, or because you lost guys to the NFL draft, transfer portal, whatever it may be, you can replace and reload with what you have on roster. And so Georgia, they've only got QB and pass rusher. I can guarantee you they'll have at least another player by the time these two teams face off. They'll have at least a player at pass catcher, offensive tackle, or outside corner. They always do. That's something that they've done a very good job of developing. And I put my money on outside corner. They take athletes, they develop them, and they've stacked that secondary room. So, or like the coaching staff. So it wouldn't shock me at all if they hit that one really quickly with outside corner. But again, Georgia's Georgia. Like they stack talent at every spot, and they build, and they're going to be up in 2025, 2024, 2025, probably 2026 with Kirby's new long-term extension. It's going to suck. We are going to talk about the final month of the season for the Florida Gators and how they match up on paper with these guys. But first, a quick word from FanDuel. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. And I'm telling you, I've been having fun betting baseball. I just want to throw that one out there. I've been having a lot of fun betting baseball. Joe Adele, thank you for hitting a home run yesterday. Plus 420 odds. Banged it, and I just knew he would do it against Martin Perez. That's why I did not start Martin Perez on my fantasy baseball team. So it's like, yep, he's going to give up at least one bomb. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. Remember that FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And we're talking about the Final Four, which Florida's last 5 games are just hell. Again, we know that, and we'll see if I don't know if next year the schedule is going to change, but we know the opponents are the same. But if the schedule is the same but flipped, then the final 5 games next year are going to suck too, because these teams generally pretty good. So you look at Texas is the first team to talk about here. They've got quarterback, pass catcher, offensive tackle, outside corner. Despite losing 2 receivers to the NFL, they still have an answer at pass catcher because they brought in Isaiah Bond from Alabama, who hit all the qualifications needed. He was a starter. He had a 75 overall grade on PFF, and he was a starter at the Power 5 level. He did all of them with Alabama. So he hits the mark here for Texas. They've got QB, obviously, with Quinn Ewers. They've got offensive tackle, and they've got outside cornerback. So they've answered it all. Done. Future, they've got quarterback, pass catcher, offensive tackle, pass rusher, outside corner. And a program like Texas is probably always going to have those for the future. I feel like they always have. Like their recruiting has been good. It's literally just a matter of, do they ever come to fruition and work out that way? And the answer a lot of times has been no, but things can change there. But for Texas, yeah, they're going to be a pain. They are one of 2 teams on this list that have 4 players at the present, the other being Miami. Miami does not have it at offensive tackle. Texas does not have it at pass rusher. You can decide which one is more important to you. Either way, it's protecting the quarterback, rushing the quarterback. That's it. Those are the 2 spots that they don't have. Then you look at LSU. Present, they've got offensive tackle and pass rusher. They lost their 2 starting receivers to the NFL draft, did not replace them with proven starters at the Power 5 level. They lost Jaden Daniels to the NFL draft, did not replace him with a starter at the next level. And then outside corner was atrocious last year. And I think we all know that. But so they've got offensive tackle and pass rusher. Trench warfare, right? That's the Brian Kelly way of life. You look at the future, they've got a QB, pass catcher, offensive tackle, pass rusher. They don't have an outside corner, which is weird that Corey Raymond doesn't have a good outside corner committed in the 2024 class. He didn't get one when he left Florida. Came over, didn't get a late ad. didn't get Jameer Grimsley when he left Alabama, things like that. And of course, their 2025 class, stacked. Just if you didn't remember that, absolutely stacked. But their 2024 class, they've got answers: QB, pass catcher, offensive tackle, pass rusher. They are, I think, maybe the only team that has exactly 4 spots for the future, outside of Miami. And the only SEC team that has exactly 4. Miami does not have it at quarterback. LSU does not have it at outside cornerback. So LSU, again, another team looking for the future, will be tough. And 2020, like if the future we were talking about 2025 kids, they'd have outside corner, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, they've got that. Ole Miss present, they've got QB, they've got pass catcher, and they've got pass rusher. QB, they've got Jackson Dart returning. Pass catcher, they have 2 players, if I'm not mistaken, there. And pass rusher, Princely Uman-Mielen, which I know. But they've got their answer through the transfer portal. They figured things out. And I wanted to specify the transfer portal because that's the part of me that's like, I don't know if what Lane Kiffin is doing at Ole Miss is sustainable. I get it. What he's doing at Ole Miss is great for Ole Miss, great for the expectation. I know that a lot of people like to talk about, if you fire Billy Napier, bring in Lane Kiffin. I don't know if Billy Napier's winning enough to be allowed the time that he needs, because I do think that his method is sustainable. As long as you win now, I think he's setting the team up for long-term sustainable success. But Ole Miss is winning more now, and I don't know if they're setting up for long-term sustainable success relying on the transfer portal that much. Because right now, for the future, they've only got pass catcher. And if you look at everything Lane Kiffin's done in recent years, he's building through the transfer portal. I don't know if that's sustainable to build through it like that. I think you build most of it through high school recruiting. You answer some questions in the transfer portal. Like if you've got, if you're Miami, let's say, you had a pass catcher, you had a pass rusher, and you had an outside corner from last year. Those would have been your presence. And then you added Cam Ward through the transfer portal, and now you've got 4 of your 5 spots. Like that kind of approach of just like, yeah, we just need to fill out a couple of these key spots in the transfer portal. Let's do it here. You could do that. But I feel like what Lane Kiffin's doing is too dependent on the transfer portal. And that part's a little concerning as far as long-term sustainable success goes. Because again, they only have a pass catcher that's a blue chip there. That's it. Got a lot of work to do. Florida State, present, offensive tackle. That's it. Yep, that's it. At pass rusher, they lost Jared Verse, and I forgot his name, Patrick Payton, I think it is, did not qualify for the 75+ PFF grade. Outside corner, they lost both, so replacing that. Then you look at QB, lost Jordan Travis, who, no matter what your opinion says, he would have qualified here if he was here. And pass catcher, they lost Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson. Hell, they lost Jaheim Bell too. They lost their pass catchers, so they've only got offensive tackle returning. Future, quarterback, pass catcher, offensive tackle, pass rusher, corner. They've got every spot at building blocks. Okay? All 5 of the premium positions, they've got a 2024 or 2023 or 2024 blue chip player. So Florida State, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Florida are all the teams that have an answer at all 5 spots here. Okay. So as far as the 2025 battles go and 2026 battles, like these are on paper going to be elite players at premium positions going at it on paper. And that is something to be excited for. It's also something to say, okay, well, Florida's schedule is not getting easier in 2025. If anything, you'd argue that it's going to get harder in 2025, because if you look at just who they have right now on paper, Mississippi State going to have more than they have this year. You look at Tennessee, you look at LSU, you look at Florida State. Those are 3 teams that right now don't have a QB listed that hits the qualifiers, but do for the blue chip. And again, most important position, going to make things more difficult. But Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow talking with Brian Smith to talk some recruiting, where the Florida Gators will hopefully pick up some more steam, added a little bit last week. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I'll see you all next time